What's the most fucked up thing the US government has done? The Trail of Tears is pretty up there for most fucked up thing. Edit. Yes, I know slavery happened. I'm not arguing that this was worse, I just named the first thing that popped into my head. Back in the 50s and 60s, the US military tested several different biological weapons on and unbeknownst to the public. They specifically targeted low-income and poverty-stricken areas. They tested things from chemicals to viruses. It wasn't declassified till 10 years ago. Edit. Sources. Edit 2. Why would they declassify it? Freedom of Information Act required them to disclose this. For years, so many people were arrested, disappeared, and even dismissed as conspiracy theorists through this. I can also say that chemtrails aren't a thing. I work aerospace, and the altitude that these planes are flying wouldn't do anything. Planes would be flying much lower like crop dusters in order to make any effect. It's literally vapor and exhaust coming from the planes, and some stay longer because of the different altitudes, temps and RH that they are flying. Edit 3. Since people are still arguing to me for chemtrails, here is the science that debunks it. Sandy Creek Massacre? 500 Colorado cavalry were sent to track down natives that were attacking settlers, for good reason, but that is a long story. They ended up coming to a Cheyenne village that was known to be peaceful. Its leader, Black Kettle, was a voice of peace for the natives and had even gone to Washington, D.C. to meet with President Lincoln and negotiate a lasting peace between Americans and Cheyenne. Lincoln gave him an American flag and told him that so long as it flew in their camp, no American would harm them. Anyways, this asshole Chivington was leading the cavalry, and saw it as some kind of noble duty. After months of searching for aggressive natives and coming up empty-handed, the government ordered him to disband his force and go home. Chivington, now faced with the prospect of his crusade being an embarrassment, decided to attack Black Kettle's village, basically just to say he did something. The Colorado cavalry attacked in the middle of the night in mid-November, while everyone was sleeping. Eyewitness accounts are terrifying, and basically women, children, and men were run down as they tried desperately to flee across a frozen river. Black Kettle ran into the middle of the battle waving the American flag and screaming that they were friends of America. But the Americans turned on him and he was forced to drop the flag and flee as well. The fact that Black Kettle survived is miraculous. But most of his clan did not. And the few that survived the battle mostly died of hypothermia and starvation from literally fleeing through a frozen river in the middle of the night. Cavalrymen raped live and dead women, including children, and cut off male and female genitals and strapped them to their horses as decorations. Black Kettle and what remained of his clan ended up getting sent to a reservation, where they mostly starved to death. And Black Kettle gave up on peace as the younger generation flocked to warlords like Roman Nose and Crazy Horse. This ended up contributing to Red Cloud's War, as did most of the other atrocities in the West. Also Chivington was known to have said, "Nits make lice," a statement that referred to his campaign of exterminating native children along with everyone else. And I'm already sure Colorado nearly elected him governor after all of this anyways. I mean, there was the time the National Guard shot and killed coal miners and their families who were being horribly exploited by coal companies, so they were striking. See also, the Ludlow Massacre, and the time they decided to routinely sterilize Native American women, and the Guatemala syphilis experiments. The silencing, embarrassing, and killing of Gary Webb. Gary Webb was an investigative journalist who proved that the CIA was selling massive amounts of drugs, particularly cocaine, to typically black, poor neighborhoods all over the U.S. This was in order to fund an overthrow of the Nicaraguan government by U.S.-friendly terrorists during the 90s. He was forced to resign, disgraced, blacklisted, divorced, and found dead with 2 bullets through his head in 2004. It was ruled a suicide despite the facts he owned no guns, and it being 2 bullets through the head in a suicide. The Tuskegee syphilis experiment. The CIA testing birth control on unsuspecting women in Puerto Rico. Well, this probably isn't the worst thing America has done since it didn't happen. But Operation Northwoods. This was a proposed false flag attack on U.S. soil that would justify going to war with Cuba. It was rejected by Kennedy, but approved by every man before him. It's stuff like this that makes the whole 9/11 inside job conspiracy sound a little less wacky. Because this was essentially the same thing. I'm sure that for every fucked up thing we know about, there are even worse things that we don't. The involvement in various Latin American countries during the Cold War was pretty fucked up. The things they haven't been caught for. Agent Orange. Depleted uranium arms that polluted battlefields, people's homelands, and left generations of people with birth defects after the war was done. We overthrew a democratically elected government in Iran when the people didn't vote for who we wanted. Edit. Down with the military-industrial complex. Great nations don't fight endless wars. Operation Wetback. Along the lines, same ethics of the Japanese internment camps. But not as well known. You want this chronological or alphabetical? Currently, they are abusing the fact that the whole population is tunnel visioning on the corona pandemic to pass a highly controversial bill. That will grant them access to every single phone call or message passed, sent, received on American soil. Without warrant or court order. Edit. Okay guys, this comment officially has gained 50 times more upvotes than my most upvoted post. And first award ever too. She ate. Edit 2. Source, credit to you, Elvert_BB for this. Found this helpful summary of the bill. Actual bill for those that can read law, Earn IT Act 2020. Edit 3. Okay, who is the crackhead who gave me plat? The government has been trying to take away all privacy. MK Ultra. Staging coups on democratic governments because they had oppositional ideologies. There is literally an entire wiki page on US staged coups. Allowing one of its own town's water supply to be poisoned for financial benefit. Appointing family to senior government positions. Agent Orange. Declaring war on a nation based on a false pretense of fighting terror. While doing nothing to the actual country that orchestrated the attack. At the same time, dragging other nations into this war and tearing relations with them, e.g., France. Who you would not exist without, because they didn't want to be involved. And then causing such instability that massive terrorist organizations blossomed out of it. Then patting yourselves on the back for fixing a problem that the US started in the first place. Except the issue is not even 100% fixed. Refusal to condemn terrorism from a particular viewpoint in order to protect your voter base. Denying their own citizens accessible healthcare, claiming it as something only people lucky or wealthy enough should have. But making weapons considered a basic right. Smallpox blankets. Literally having a civil war over slavery and being one of the last Western nations to make it unlawful. Systematic racial segregation to the point of drinking fountains. Buses. Laundromats, not even allowing them to walk through the same door. While simultaneously denying that this may have had a negative effect on huge swaths of these groups on a socio-economic level well into modern times. While also denying ongoing racism despite the fact that a huge chunk of the modern population was alive and well during those times of segregation. And had no issue with it. Allowing large corporations to legally bribe politicians for outcomes that are unhealthy for the nation as a whole. Systematic pedophilia in the entertainment and business industries. And probably a lot more that was just not discovered yet. Allowing a media organization to publish and broadcast false information because the organization won with an argument claiming that their news was for entertainment and not for being factual. And making shit up was more entertaining to the audiences. IDK, maybe some other shit. Some details may be wrong, but I'll find links in the morning. Edit. Apparently smallpox blankets was a lie. I retract that statement. Sent me a letter telling me that I had figured my taxes wrong. If they knew, why didn't they just do it for me? Honestly, there's so many grotesquely fucked up things it's hard to pick just one. Not to mention there's so much that's classified. That honestly we don't know for sure. The thread is bound to mention stuff like slavery. Tuskegee. MK Ultra. Trail of Tears. Iran-Contra. Jim Crow laws. Vietnam War. Voter suppression. Operation Northwoods. The Patriot Act. Pretending COVID is a hoax to short stock. Bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Executing mentally disabled criminals. And the list just goes on and on and on. How do you pick a most fucked up thing? I'm gonna go with not doing anything to stop the brutal lynching. rape and murder of African Americans up until the 60s. The Diego Garcia incident in the 1968. Which is also one of the worst things the UK government has done. For the UK to continue purchasing nuclear missiles from America. They asked to rent out the British island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean to use as a naval base. The UK then subsequently sent soldiers onto the island. Forced all of the inhabitants off of the island. Killed anybody who resisted. Destroyed all homes and killed all the animals so US soldiers could then turn the island into a naval base. Any ex-inhabitants who tried to speak out about the incident were immediately silenced and punished. And the details of the incident were only recently made public. The island is still a joint UK-US naval base to this day. Hard to rank them, but the Gulf of Tonkin incident was a US false flag operation to establish the pretext to invade Vietnam to stop the spread of communism. Leading to the absolutely useless deaths of millions of military and civilians, only to have the US pull out and cede control of the entire country to communist control. The most fucked up thing about it is that our government knew it was an unwinnable war, but we stayed there anyway, throwing more bodies on the pile. The news media kept a daily running count of US dead. The US Gov. measured success in terms of number of enemy dead. Burying and bombing of Black Wall Street. Throwing citizens in internment camps during WW2. Shuffles deck picks card not doing anything about the AIDS epidemic. Gulf of Tonkin. And subsequently the Vietnam War. Privatization for profit of our prison systems. The incessant need to overthrow democratically elected socialist leaders and/or assassinating them and then planting fascist dictators in their place. Victims. Salvador Allende, murdered by US-backed coup in Chile. Patrice Lumumba, assassinated by CIA in DRC. Thomas Sankara, murdered by US and French-backed coup in Burkina Faso. Jean-Bertrand Aristide, ousted by US-backed coup in Haiti. Anyone care to add to the list? There's lost more, I'm sure. Oh. And the US literally invaded the tiny island of Grenada in the Caribbean to take down a socialist government. Sad. Please sit down. This might take a while. Decimated the Native American population. And then gave them the worst land and doomed them to poverty. I don't know. How about irradiating pregnant women? Minorities? Hospital patients and your own fucking allies for a starter? The Dred Scott decision. Involvement in the Vietnam War. Agent Orange. And slavery are the most fucked up that I can think of. The MK Ultra LSD mind control experiments from the 1950s. Finance conflicts in South American and Caribbean countries to disprove the socialist economic theory and undermine the stability and integrity of communist governments. Trying to buy out the coronavirus cure. The eugenics movement, where disabled, feeble-minded, and the mentally ill were sterilized against their will to improve the human race. Took half of my shit in my fucking divorce. Good thing I hid most of my shit in my friend Lenny's bank account. Fuck you Cheryl, you cunt. Manifest Destiny. The only difference between it and Hitler's hunger plan was that Manifest Destiny worked. Most historians consider the US expansion westward as a genocide. Remember that time the CIA allowed a Nicaraguan cartel to sell cocaine in America to fund a civil war. Basically started the 80s crack epidemic in black communities. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.